Hey, everybody. It's me, Derek DC Phillips, bringing you all things frightful. And today we are going to talk about a true hidden gem. That's right. Buried deep in the field of forgotten direct to video sequels, Children of the Corn 3 Urban Harvest was long ignored, but finally, like so many similar films, it's starting to gain some traction online, becoming a bit of a cult. I won't say classic, but a cult movie, at least. Now, although Stephen King himself has said that he could do without all of the Children of the Corn sequels, I did read one interview where he said that this is a standout for him. And that says a lot because his works have kind of been through the ringer. In recent years, there's been a real resurgence and interest in making these elevated horror versions of his works. But in the 80s and 90s, a lot of them went straight to video. They were made for TV. People like you and me love that, but the general public, not so much. I have to admit that the Children of the Corn series for me is sort of similar to the Hellraiser franchise. It's one that I've just never been a diehard fan of, unlike the Halloween franchise or the Friday the 13th franchise. I couldn't tell you what specifically happens in each sequel in order or who the main characters are. But if I'm channel surfing and I see one of the sequels on the USA Network or Sci-Fi, it's one of those where I would have stopped to watch. To give a bit of context, the original Children of the Corn movie was a cult hit. It raked in $14.6 million on just an $800,000 budget. That's a pretty big deal, especially for the time. It starred Linda Hamilton of Terminator fame, of course. Since it came out in 1984, potential for a slasher franchise was ripe, but also audiences were getting kind of cynical in their approach to slashers. So it took something like a Freddy Krueger that same year in A Nightmare on Elm Street to shake up the formula. So I imagine that Children of the Corn was just different enough to have a ripple effect, but filmmakers didn't quite know what to do with the property in order to stretch it out to span a full franchise. I personally love what the filmmaking team did with Stephen King's original short story that appeared in the Night Shift collection. If you haven't read the Night Shift collection, go get it now. I think they did a great job expanding the story to have enough material for a feature-length movie. Obviously, the effects toward the end, when He Who Walks Behind the Rose is revealed, they go a bit bonkers, but it's all in good fun. And there's some genuine tension. The kids are creepy. The fact that we see kids doing such heinous things, that opening scene where they go into the diner, brutal. Like I said, though, when we get to part two, I get the sense that the filmmakers just didn't know where to go. They made a valiant effort, but they didn't strike while the iron was hot. Part two came out in 1992. That was almost a full decade later. It took place in a town adjacent to Gatlin. So I feel like they took that Friday the 13th approach. In Friday the 13th part two, there was the story of, we're opening a new camp next door to Crystal Lake, probably to explain away any inconsistencies between filming locations. But for Friday the 13th part two, that worked. In Children of the Corn 2, there are some wacky kills. The tone is a bit disjointed as a result. It's almost like we don't know if this wants to be a horror comedy, if it wants to be campy, if it's unintentionally hilarious. That line is not clear. It's not well defined. Some Native American mythology is also introduced, a la Poltergeist Part 2, and it's a bit much. I don't have much more to say there. It's one of those that just didn't really make a big impression. It didn't do anything to further the story, and it also didn't really give us more of what we loved about the first one. I think those are the two factors that allow a second movie to work. You're either giving us exactly what we loved about the first one, and that's fine, or you're giving us something new and you're taking things in a new direction. Now, due to the reception of part two, part three was the first Children of the Corn sequel to be released direct to video. Also, due to my own personal feelings surrounding part two, it took forever for me to watch part three. Finally, though, I decided to give it a chance. I had one of those multi-movie DVD packs. It was a lazy fall Saturday, so I put it on, and it was a great time to be had by all. Without giving away too much, this movie has a lot going for it. Charlize Theron, killer plants, killer teens, an epic showdown between the impulse to be good and to be evil. The main story here, again, without spoilers, revolves around two young brothers who survived the Gatlin massacre. That's how it's sort of portrayed in the media. These poor kids, we don't know exactly what happened. They were under the influence of, of evil, and they need a new, fresh start. So these two boys, these two brothers, are adopted out to a yuppie Chicago couple. We've soon learned that one of these brothers has a genuinely good heart and he wants a fresh start. He doesn't want to be evil and wicked like the cult that followed He Who Walks Behind the Rose. The other, on the other hand, is manipulative. This gives us sort of a Good Son or Omen vibes. Killer kid subgenre is strong here. What I love about this movie is that it weaves together so many elements and checks so many subgenre boxes without ever taking itself too seriously or feeling overloaded. Like part two felt like they were throwing in things to see what could stick. Here, it feels like they're throwing in things, but they know they're throwing in things. Like it's a little bit too much, but we're having fun with it. And there's a nice blend of B-movie tongue-in-cheek elements as a result. Along with some genuinely creepy characters. There is tension in this movie. There are laughs, and you can tell that it's on purpose. Some kills are unexpected. There are a few twists when you watch this movie that I think will surprise you. The family element, even the young couple who takes in these boys, you really root for them. They're trying, they want to give these kids a home. And so because of that dynamic, there are some elements at play that I think may tug at your heartstrings a bit. This was not the formulaic sequel that I anticipated. Yes, the finale is over the top, but you can tell again that the filmmakers knew this and embraced it, and they allocated enough budget to make it work. It keeps things fun and exciting without inducing too many eye rolls. The effects are a definite step up here, which is a plus. Again, to give part three a bit of context, within the overall series, Dimension kept the momentum going, releasing Children of the Corn for The Gathering the following year in 1996. Oh gosh. They ditched the storyline of part three. And again, they just didn't know what to do with the story. And it's such a shame because Karen Black is here. She's not put to great use. We don't see her full potential here. Naomi Watts plays a doctor who shows up to treat kids who have come down with a mysterious illness, a mysterious fever. This is where, again, as with the Hellraiser franchise, my interest just dips in and out. I won't turn it off if it's on TV, but I also don't have that completist drive to finish the series. You know what I mean? Then part five coincided majorly with the Scream slasher boom. So you can tell, again, Dimension didn't know what to do with this property. So they threw in some new teens who, in this case, include Ava Mendez, Alexis Arquette, and we get to experience major BDE. And by that, I mean big direct-to-video energy. The writer-director of this film, gotta praise him for that, playing double duty here. His credits include writing for the House series, effects on Return of the Jedi, and even the Jason X soundtrack. So pretty eclectic, mixed bag of experience. I thought I would really enjoy this movie as a result. It's very 90s with budget versions of Smash Mouth tunes. Where in the background it's like that song sounds familiar, but it's not the real song. It's got some so bad it's good moments sprinkled throughout, but not enough to keep the overall movie afloat. Some road tripping teens stop for gas, literally take a break to start picking corn. There's a girl with a crop top and a choker who is walking around with arms full of corn. The children of the corn also in this movie are primarily adult teens, like that Dawson's Creek effect of clearly young 20 somethings playing teenagers. Isn't there a rule in this franchise about aging out of the cult? Like that rule even plays into this movie. So what are we doing here? The leader of the cult in this movie, I will say, looks like Dewey. Do you remember the youngest kid from Malcolm in the Middle? Kane Hodder is a bartender who pops up. I'm spending more time on part 5 than part 3 at this point, but it is that chaotic. This is where I'll kind of just trail off in terms of the rest of the series. Like I said, part 3 is a hidden gem. So if you've seen any of the movies before part 3 or after part 3 that are not the first, then give it a shot. Please, I promise you won't be disappointed. Much like part 3, Dream Warriors of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, part 3 of Children of the Corn is a standout. It does not get the kind of attention that it deserves. Don't let the others discourage you from giving it a chance. And in the coming months, years, I thought somewhere I had read about this property being rebooted. I hope it's done in a way that gives it justice, and hopefully it'll bring that spotlight that's much needed back to part 3.